Welcome one and all to another bumper episode of New Game Plus. For the record, most of our team are still deployed in Japan having the time of their lives. And I'm here sitting there miserable, so you're stuck with me. I'm sorry, guys. But in the meantime, strap yourself in and feel the G's. G rank, that is.
I stand in and around these cityscapes as a sort of metaphor for the cityscapes that I visited during my holiday, because I have come back from a month traveling around Europe in the Nordics and of Iceland and Finland, and in the Caucasus of Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia. I want to talk about two gaming aspects of these areas. In Iceland, in Reykjavik, Iceland's capital, I encountered CCP Studios, the studio developers of EVE Online, and to the point where there is a monument that has been erected outside of that studio's office, which is sort of these three pillars supposed to be dedicated to the game, but as well as that, on the base of that is engraved the name of every person who played EVE Online in its first 10 years. It's a sight to behold, and if you really want, you can there's a website for you to look up your name. It'll tell you where it is, and you'll be able to find it on that monument. It's pretty cool. The other thing I want to talk to you about is gaming in the Caucasus, because games are expensive over there. It takes about a month's worth of salary to buy a console in Georgia and Armenia, and about a month and a half's worth of salary in Azerbaijan. So people still want a game. Hence, they have these game clubs, these PlayStation clubs, essentially like kind of LANs that you can go into, except they've all just got TVs and consoles for you to be able to just go in, hire, and play to your heart's content. A lot of them had FIFA. So much FIFA. Although apparently Georgia may be a Pro Evolution soccer country because their national team is in that game, but not in FIFA. So that's just a small interesting bit there. So yeah, like gaming all around the world, it's very wild and varied. You should go on a holiday sometime.
Now you might not know this about New Game Plus, but we tend to watch a little bit of anime amongst our crew. And one of the series that's divided the crew for a long time is Kill la Kill. It was a very flashy, very artistic experience, lots of grandeur in the art and a lot of the grand performances and all this kind of stuff. But personally, I think it ran out of a little bit of steam towards the end. But the reason I bring it up is in 2019, apparently Arc System Works have decided to release Kill la Kill If, which is a game set in like an alternate history version of the telling of the events of Kill la Kill. So you start the game playing as Satsuki, who's like, I guess, the main girl or the second main girl, like the headmaster of the school that it all kind of happens at, and you play kind of a top-down version of that. So you go through all the different fights, and obviously all the main characters show up, and Mother and all these really important characters in the story show up. But what actually happens is a little bit different. It's a little bit out of sequence, if you will. But the thing is, it's a game, so it looks pretty, and especially when you put it into the dock and things like that, it's fantastic, like art and the way that... One thing Arc System Works can do, if you've played Guilty Gear or you've played Dragon Ball, is you know that they can animate in Unreal. And this game looks fantastic in the cutscenes, and even in the game itself, it looks all right, but it is a pretty standard arena fighter. Close range attacks, long range attacks, guard breaks, rushes. It plays like a Tenkaichi, like it plays like Dragon Ball Z Tenkaichi. So your mileage may vary based on that, because I've never been a big fan of that style of game. However, it does a good enough job of being pretty, tying into the story, all these elements, and God, it is pretty. If nothing else, they have nailed the presentation of this game. All of it is voice acted, all of it it just catches the eye, similar to the way the original series does, and they've even got like the noises when the actual titles and stuff like dun dun dun, like that come from the series, and it just really does feel like they've gone that extra step into making the game feel like it's part of the universe. But the problem is, like I say, how attached to the Kill la Kill universe exactly are you? And that's going to be what really decides whether you think this game is worth playing. And so on that note, I decided to bring in one of the people I know who is actually a big fan of Kill la Kill, and welcome him back to the new set. Shaney, welcome back to discuss Kill la Kill. Now, please tell me why I'm wrong.
Okay, so I don't know if you're wrong exactly about the game, because I kind of am in the same boat in arena fighters, that a lot of the time they start off fine and then they get pretty boring. You get like leveling up and you kind of upgrade your skills, but you get either to the point where you're overpowered and it's just boring like that, or you're still just mashing the best combo in the game. Yeah. And that's most all arena fighters. You find out the best
your bread and butters, and then you just
there is no kind of depth to that kind of combat
no nuance
system.
to it. Yeah.
But like, I think the nuance to where the story is like, yeah, to the game, I guess, is the story, and it's the same as the anime. Like, I understand where you come from in the sense that it did fall off for you, but I thought it more changed tone.
Yes.
Like it went
that's
from
fair.
it went from a comedy series from like the first 5-10 episodes where it was literally basically a comedy to where it was actually then back to like or not back, but to a drama piece. Like it changed tone so much that you're kind of getting more emotion to the characters rather than just laughing at them most of the time.
Well, I think, but that is kind of its issue in the sense that aesthetically it was always pleasing. Like I love the art style. Like I love the kind of the desolate dystopia matched with all of these like grand monuments and just the way they contrast all that's always been great. But I think the problem is it always played as kind of a parody, as a satire. And what is it parodying? What's its point? Like, what's it trying to say?
I think it was at the start. It was the parody. Like it was the same as kind of not One Punch Man kind of.
No,
like,
but I get what you're saying.
It was still like the shonen kind of parody.
Yeah.
Like there was females instead of males, but there were super strong characters that just had these armors that were the special suits kind of thing. Their superpowers.
And they lose their clothes is how they lose their powers and all
and
that.
so on and so on and forth. But like that kind of changed a lot post I think it was about episode 12 or 13 when there was like major twists. In the
when
story.
they reveal what's actually doing it. Yeah.
And then after that point is where there is that total shift in tone as well as like character shifts as well as like just more character development. I think it really did switch off its kind of parody style off that, and a lot of people were thinking coming into that show, oh, I'm going to like the show because of the parody. And then that point is probably where they kind of dislike.
Well, I would say Gurren Lagann does that a little bit better. You know, I mean, where it takes a piss out of like mecha shows and all that kind of stuff, but
like, this
manages to maintain it the whole way.
Yeah, but I feel like this is like a parody of Gurren Lagann in itself too.
True.
Like,
yeah. Well, it did come after, I'm pretty sure.
Well, it's coming from Studio Trigger, which is a lot of the original people from Gurren Lagann, because So who would have thunk it that they're doing a similar piece?
That's what I did, but that's what I say. I just think that Gurren Lagann did that kind of thing better. I just think it was a little bit confused. I just think it would have benefited from 2 12-season episodes, like 12 episode series, as opposed to.
I enjoyed it for what it was. I enjoyed it, and I liked the shift in tone. It was something that kind of not so fully surprised me as per se, but it made me feel, oh, okay, this is what it is now. And I'm still actually enjoying it. It's different, but it's still good because like they were going down a different angle, and a lot of the things that they did explore after that point, like the sister's approach, like her connection with her suit and stuff, and her sister's connection with her suit and her mother. That whole thing was actually really, really well developed. And then like some of the final conclusion stuff was still really, really well done, I feel like.
Well, one more before we go.
Okay.
Have you heard about the regulations on streaming it and reviewing it? Now, the footage you'll see is all Chapter 1, because I'm actually not allowed to show you footage past Chapter 1, lest my videos be removed by Access to Birth.
Okay, so this goes almost down to the point of like Persona 5 kind of stuff.
And
that's like almost a very similar argument that is this game basically a visual novel?
Yes.
Like it's got fighter elements, but it is basically a visual novel. Like
it's a lot of cutscenes.
There's a lot of cutscenes, a lot of text, and a lot of voiceover text.
Yeah.
But like, are you still spoiling the main core element of the game by doing a stream?
But I would say the difference in this is they wouldn't even let you take it into lab and just lab stuff, so you couldn't even do that.
Okay.
You couldn't do verses.
Do you want me to say that it's because the battle system is shallow because it's Arena Fighter, and they didn't want to show that it's shallow because it's Arena Fighter?
Thank you, Shaney, for reviewing the game that you didn't actually play, because that is correct. I think that is 100% why they didn't want you labbing it. Thank you, Shaney. And Kill the Kill. You might like it. I don't know.
The month of August brought us a pair of stories that should not have happened, and especially should not have involved video games. They may make you sad and they may make you angry, but isn't that half of why we play video games? We begin on the 31st of August, where Formula 2 driver Antoine Hubert was killed in a high-speed race crash at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. The accident is currently being investigated, but by all accounts, it was a freak occurrence that you cannot blame on any one factor. That is how normal people will respond. Former Formula 1 champion Jacques Villeneuve, however, is not normal people. In an interview with Belgian broadcaster RTBF, he said that the increasing use of racing simulators by younger drivers was making them more reckless on track. Quote, "When they get to the racetrack, they behave as if they're still in the simulator. The assessment of danger is no longer the same." In other words, Jacques Villeneuve is basically blaming video games for Antoine Hubert's death. And buddy, that's a take that is almost as bad as your hairdo. Almost. Video games have long been the scapegoat for the ills of the world, not just by this knockoff Guy Fieri. They have been blamed by parents as the reason that their kids don't do their homework. They are held out by old folk as a sign of society gone awry, usually before they pine for the good old days of milkshake diners and segregated water fountains. In most of these cases, it's just old people lashing out against the descendants into irrelevance, which is especially the case for Bleach Brain here. But occasionally, it's actively harmful and detracts from the greater evils of the world. Which brings me to America. On the 3rd of August, a mass shooting took place at a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, killing 22 people and injuring another 24. Less than a day later, another mass shooting took place in Dayton, Ohio, killing 9 and injuring 27. Amidst the grieving over the lost lives, people wondered what can be done to prevent these shootings. Yes, whatever can be done to make sure that guns don't kill people on such a scale? Unfortunately, because it's a shooting in America, it's time to spin the wheel on what to blame this time. I'm hoping it lands on open access to guns this time. I've projected so many thoughts and prayers into it. So, without further ado, let's spin the wheel. Come on, open access to guns. Come on, open access to guns. Open access to guns. Gosh darn it, it landed on video games.
But the idea of these video games to dehumanize individuals, to have a game of shooting individuals and others, I've always felt that is a problem for future generations and others.
That is Republican House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy there, decrying the dehumanizing effects of video games. Doing so, by the way, while sounding like a monotone robot, programmed to be very, very wrong. That reasoning, by the way, the fact that prolonged exposure to violence desensitizes people, is one that is trotted out at every moral panic, whether it be applied to movies or combat fighting, which doesn't make sense if you think about it for any more than 4 seconds. The rise of UFC hasn't resulted in a wave of gangs triangle choking their way through a town. And yes, there are scientific reports out there that link violent video games with an increase in aggressive behavior, but these studies have come under repeated criticism for faulty conclusions and publication bias. Indeed, in 2017, a division within the American Psychiatric Association advised the White House not to make any statements linking video games with violence due to that lack of firm evidence. And we all know how that turned out, don't we? If they wanted Trump to heed that message, they should have written it inside of a cheeseburger wrapper. But the one constant amongst these studies is a lack of connection between violent video games and an increase in violent crime. Indeed, one study found that popular video games may actually cause a decrease in violent crime because, and this is true, people are too busy sitting at home playing video games to go out there and commit violent crime. But I'll admit that this is a little bit cute. By this logic, you can also attribute a decrease in violent crime to other things that keep people in their homes, like sporting events and TV shows. So, on behalf of everyone, I would like to extend a big old thank you to the true hero out there, Married at First Sight. You are an important part of keeping society safe. But there is one chart that puts into stark contrast how much video games don't cause violent crime. This is the 10 largest consumers of video games. And this is the amount of violent gun deaths per capita in those countries. That spike is basically one big middle finger from Republicans and gun lobbyists. And that is a real factor at play here. The Republican Party takes millions of dollars from the National Rifle Association, including Senator Bot McCarthy from earlier. So it's in their best interest to deflect from discussion around gun control, including by laying blame on the blameless, all until the news cycle moves on and the gun control debate is quashed for another day. And the fact that neither Trump nor McCarthy have mentioned video games since early to mid-August speaks volumes about their so-called dedication to protecting people from violent video games. So whenever you hear someone trying to blame video games for something, it's a telltale sign that they are trying to hide something, whether it be their own inadequacy or powerful lobby forces putting profits ahead of people's safety. But if the Republicans still insist on blaming video games, then I can think of the very first game that should be banned: Donald Trump's Real Estate Tycoon. if I play that game, I too may be inspired to commit random acts of deception, sexism, and racism. So Donald Trump, you should really ban that for everyone's own good. You have the power. And that is everything that has happened in the world ever.
Now, it's been some time since we've last checked up on Astera. A prosperous land teeming with enticing discoveries and deadly wildlife has more than likely had every square kilometre explored by now. Or so we thought, as Capcom have thrown us another curveball with exciting new regions to explore in the very latest expansion to their record-selling series, Monster Hunter World: Iceborne. Iceborne is set immediately after the events of the first game. Its content updates as erratic changes in monsters' behaviour coincidentally leads to the discovery of the icy, desolate region of Hoarfrost Reach. It's from there that you join the first fleet in exploring its unforgiving landscape and attempt to retain balance within the ecosystem. However, this is easier said than done, as Iceborne's entire campaign revolves around completing Master Rank quests. For series veterans, these are effectively G-Rank quests, and the faintest of heart need not apply. Monsters are far more aggressive, hit harder, and can test the resolve of the most patient of hunters. To help face against such adversity, Iceborne incorporates a few features that help change the tide of combat. Most notable is the Clutch Claw, which mounts you to an enemy within range and allows you to perform several maneuvers depending on the situation, and the ability to use your slingshots without having to sheath your weapon, which is perfect for when you have Crystal Burst and you need to make a monster flinch on a whim. Balance remains an important element, and while some of these changes increase hunter utility, Capcom has ensured that you still need to earn your successful hunts. Difficulty can now be scaled to a pair specific mode if there are only 2 hunters in a party, and adjusts accordingly when other hunters abandon or disconnect, rather than staying the same regardless of circumstance. It creates a stern but fair attitude that permeates throughout the duration of the expansion, even during some of the hardest of quests. Added are a few quality of life changes outside the realms of questing, such as being able to choose which area to spawn in as soon as you boot into the game, radial menus for emotes and villages, and a variety of strange resource building minigames. Some of these features in Iceborne are a bit of a letdown though, particularly when you wonder why they weren't patched into the base game in the first place. Though with a number of new monsters, a sizable main story quest line, and more endgame content on the way, it's difficult to be too mad about that. So if you're a returning hunter, chances are you've already made your mind up about Iceborne. For the fence-sitters, it's a great content update complementing the foundations of an amazing base game. Just make sure you're over hunter rank 16 before you decide to get stuck in. Now, I think that's pretty relevant because I've brought in my fellow Palico, Brandon, resident Monster Hunter expert and assistant here to help me discuss some of the finer points of content delivery in Monster Hunter World. And I think he's looking a little bit angry and jealous because I actually got the good Palico hat. You a bit jealous there, buddy?
A little bit, like.
A little bit? I'm sorry I had to put you through this. This is why I don't host this show, because I do things like this. Anyway, moving on. I wanted to talk about some interesting things about Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Now, there's a bit of animosity over certain fans, people who might have just been jumping into the series from Monster Hunter 4U or 3 or even Monster Hunter World, who are a bit upset with the way content is being delivered within Iceborne. Some people genuinely think that they're entitled to free updates, or at least, they have been getting a lot of title updates. But they feel that some facets of Iceborne should have been free from the get-go. Now, is that a sentiment that you particularly agree with?
I feel like that's just kind of, we actually get such a big, really good deal with this to other expansions. Usually when this type of stuff happens, when you introduce G-Rank, we have to start from scratch, rebuying the game. This is an expansion.
It effectively is double the, probably just the same amount of the base game in terms of missions, main quest storyline, and endgame content. So there is a lot of content there.
Yeah, this is honestly one of the best deals we've ever had. We don't notice that in Australia due to the fact that we just get the G-Rank one straight away usually. But in Japan, they always have to buy the game twice unless they want to hold off buying the original game and wait just for the G-Rank version.
It's actually an excellent point you bring up, and it's one of the point of contention that I wanted to make. You can definitely tell the people who have been fans for a very long time, who are like, I'm okay with this, I'm cool with this, and other people who are like, no, this is not on. So for the uninitiated, Monster Hunter used to be released on a schedule, and it still is in Japan, where you'll have the base game, which is essentially low rank and high rank quests, and what's essentially the master rank, known as G rank in the other games, are essentially released in a brand new SKU. So the game is re-released with extra quests. You may have to start from scratch. And that's the way the release has always been with games like Monster Hunter 1, 2, 3, and 4 as well. Like Monster Hunter 4 in Japan didn't have any G rank quests to begin with, and then got re-released as Monster Hunter 4G. Over here, overseas outside of Japan, so in America, in Australia, anywhere else, is released as Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, which is essentially just the G rank or Monster Hunter 4G SKU rebranded and relocalized. Same thing happened with Monster Hunter Generations, where our version of Generations is just Monster Hunter Double Cross, which is chock full of more content than the original release. So I feel that it's just a matter of perspective. Some people feel that they're owed this via title updates, which again, we are getting a crapload of free content, new monsters coming in. I mean, we only just got announced Zenoga, Rajang in a later title update, and we all know that fighting Rajang is no simple feat.
Yeah, no, I'm dreading it and looking forward to it for the Rajang fight. I don't.
Yeah, you like the way it hurts, doesn't it, Brandon? But that's actually the next topic as well. Before we cap this off, recurring monsters, returning monsters, maybe potential new monsters. I mean, what's your bet when it comes down to monsters that will eventually be patched in and announced?
Well, I'm hoping for Gormagala because he's my favorite monsters, and it makes sense because they're bringing back all the flagships.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
I think it's more realistic for them to bring back Legiacris because there was actually footage from when Monster Hunter World launched originally of Legiacris in like a swamp kind of environment. So they've made the model. He's there. He's also a flagship, and he's also the game that I came into Monster Hunter with. So I'd really like him to be in the game.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, thing is that Iceborne seems to have a bit of a fire and ice motif going, and if they keep going with that trend, I reckon a Cantor is my main pick. I mean, it's a gigantic, massive monster. Let's see how they weasel him in. I reckon they will be able to. If they could do Rajang, they could definitely do a Cantor. But it's pretty relevant that we actually end the note right here, finishing about reviewing Monster Hunter, because we've just slayed ourselves another gargantuan New Game Plus episode, and now it's time to go. But if you are looking for more New Game Plus content, you're hungry for more, be sure to check us out on all of our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the absolute lot, on our Discord, all under /New Game Plus TV. And if you're hungry for more content and more reviews, they're all hosted on our website at www.newgameplustv. That's all for this week, and we will see you next time.